وشكرا.
Well, five big ifs there from George Alam. But it seems, Kivorian, that all of these ifs revolve around your country, Syria. So you've heard George's five ifs. You heard Dr. Yunus's somewhat pessimistic analysis. What's yours?
Yes, indeed. Actually, there is a very important equation in politics here in the Middle East, says that when Syria sneezes, Lebanon gets cold. This is the only equation that's happening now in the region, that since the beginning of the uprising or the movement, political movement in Syria, many political parties of Lebanon intervened in Syria, and namely the Future Movement. They sent their aid Uqab Sakr to Turkey, to Antakya, to control the armed flows and the mercenaries into Syria. But when you Afghanize your neighbor, you will become a Pakistan. This is the reality now. The spillover of the Syrian crisis now is a reality in Lebanon, and the bombings happening everywhere. And the point is, no one cares about Shias, no one cares about the Sunnis, no one cares about the Christians. This is a proxy war. These countries have interest in gas and other strategic interests. What's happening now, the regional states like Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, they are raising the level of hostility between the sects, because in Syria, before the crisis, we have in politics the macro and micro identities. The Syrian regime, they succeeded to prevail the macro identity, which is the Syrian Arab identity. But since the beginning of the crisis in Syria, some people, they went to the micro identities. They start to identify themselves as Sunnis, Alawis, Shias, Christians, etc. This serves the best interest of Israel, because at the end of the day, we all know that Israel is promoting itself as a Jewish state. And if they don't have other sectarian and other religious states which neighboring Israel, its project will fail. This is one thing. The other thing that in the international community always blames Hezbollah for its interference in Syria. Personally, I believe also Hezbollah has interest in Syria as well as Iran, and it's a preemptive war against the terrorists. It's very ironic that the EU and the United States, they consider ISIS and Nusra as terrorist organizations, but at the same time, when Hezbollah fights these terrorist groups, they consider Hezbollah as a terrorist group. So this ironic situation now in the Middle East is deteriorating the situation more and more. And Geneva too will only solve the international aspect of the Syrian crisis, the interests of these regional states. But on the domestic level, how could we solve this hostility among the people? Because there are Syrians who carried weapons against the Syrian government, and on the other hand, there are also loyals of the government. They also carried weapons against other civilians. So we have terrorists, and also we have civilians and also Syrians who carried these weapons. So how could we solve this situation? It's only by dialogue. This is what we promoted for since the beginning of the political crisis in Syria. But many opposition groups, they consider us as a beneficiaries from the regime, or we have some interest by the regime. No, this is logic. The Lebanese civil war, after 15 years and 20 years, it ended with dialogue, and it will end by dialogue in Syria. But how long it will, when we will reach into dialogue, this is the question. Today, Haitham Manna declared that he's not going to participate in Geneva II, because the UN sent the same letter that they sent to Jarba, that they are not considering the National Coordination Group of Haitham Manna as an independent party, but they want to include it with the coalition. This is the major problem, that we have oppositions in Syria, we have internal oppositions, and we also have patriotic oppositions outside, but on the other hand, we have also puppets. This is the reality. There are people who are having money, direct money, by Saudi Arabia and Qatar. I have friends who were with me in the university, and now they are in Turkey and they are studying for free because they became opposition. So we have to see how to differentiate between the patriotic people who want to defend Syria and those who want the destruction of Syria, or to come into power in Syria on the tanks, on the tanks of the Americans or other parties.
Well, look, on one level, the big Western powers, France being a slight exception, but certainly the United States and the United Kingdom, on one level, are clear. They told the Syrian opposition in no uncertain terms in Paris just the other day that you must go to Geneva or we will stop supporting you. But John Kerry, alongside Mr. Lavrov, announced that Iran could come to Geneva, whilst the spokeswoman in Washington said that he didn't say that at all, even though we saw his lips move and we heard the words coming from his mouth. But in any case, all three of you are experts, are establishing the undeniable fact that Lebanon's security and community relations within Lebanon are intimately, vitally connected to the outcome in Syria. But all three of you are a little pessimistic, I think, that Geneva too is going to lead to any kind of solution anytime soon. But I want to test my alternative thesis that a process in Syria might actually only displace the terrorist activity into Lebanon. Of course, I hope, I pray that that will not happen. But I'm not so sure that winding down, relatively speaking, of the war in Syria necessarily means an equal reduction. Does not. Kivorian, a lot of talk about your country. Would you like to respond to some of the points that have been made?
Yes, actually, in the Middle East, we have now two destructive forces. Okay, the Zionist state with its military force, and the Wahhabi state in KSA with its ideological force. These two forces are destructing the area, and they are exchanging the destruction of the Middle East. For example, in Syria, I will give you an example. This Wahhabi ideology is very odd for the Syrian people. They never heard about it, they never practiced it, but once for a sudden, a lot of people change their minds. Some people believe it is Sunnis fighting Alawites. It's not. These Sunnis, they fall in the trap of Wahhabism. These people, when they become Takfiris, they are no longer Sunnis. They are Wahhabis, because the Sunnis never tell people to cut the heads. This is the Islam of Abdul Wahhab, and also the Ikhwan al-Muslimin in the region. So now this conflict between the Wahhabism against all other sects and ideologies, it's not only against the Alawis or the Shias. Sunnis themselves suffered a lot of killings and a lot of people kidnapped. For myself, I'm from Aleppo. It is a Sunni city. The vast majority of the Aleppis were against the opposition, but these rebels the mercenaries who came from Turkey, they stole all the factories of these people, because Aleppo is an industrial city, and they transferred all these equipments into Turkey. Now these people are also a very big block of Sunnis, and they are against the opposition. So it's totally untrue that it is Sunni, Shia, or it is a matter.
Most of the Syrian army are Sunni.
Sunnis, yes, 80% of
most of the victims of these terrorists have been Sunni, because most of the people in Syria are Sunni.
Yes,
and a car bomb doesn't discriminate between the faith of the person that it explodes amongst.
Mr. George, I will mention an example. Last week I was watching a video of executions for Syrian soldiers, and before the execution they are asking the sect of each soldier, and they executed 10 soldiers, 8 of them were Sunnis. And they are telling them, are you Sunni and you are fighting us? And they are amazed, you know, because they thought that they are fighting only Alawites or Shias in Syria, and then they were surprised that even the Sunnis are fighting them. This is one. The second example, in 2012, when the FSA was controlling the northern suburb of Aleppo, and they called them the moderate rebels in the west. The Liwa Tawhid, they kidnapped my brother in Aleppo, and they took them into Anadan. And during the interrogation, the first question is, what's your sect? And when they knew he is a Christian, they beat him because he born Christian. He didn't choose his religion, you know. And when my brother was trying to tell them that I am not with the regime, I'm with the opposition and I was going to protest, and they told him Christians don't go to protest. So this is the problem. It's not what you perceive yourself, what the others perceive you. If I consider myself as a Syrian, but the other side is considering me as a Christian, so I'm infidel, so he has the right to kill me. This is